There's a certain kind of silence you only notice once it's too late. Not the silence of an empty room or a paused conversation, but a deeper one. The silence of something being taken from you without your permission, without your awareness, without even your imagination being able to trace the outline of what was stolen. That silence is where the story begins.
Welcome to Obrix, where the untold becomes unforgettable. Don't just watch the world, uncover it. Subscribe now.
In the winter of 2018, a small regional bank in Lithuania discovered a discrepancy, a few thousand euros missing from their nightly ledgers. Nothing dramatic. Accounting errors happen all the time. Someone shrugged, filed a report, and forgot about it. A week later, the same thing happened again and again and again. But the numbers were too clean, too precise, too surgical. By the time a proper investigation started, the truth was already humiliating. The bank hadn't been robbed that month. It had been robbed for years, and no one noticed. That's when rumors began circulating inside European cybercrime units. Rumors that small anomalies in Brazil looked eerily similar, that a crypto exchange in South Korea had been bleeding money quietly for 6 months, that a telecom provider in Argentina had been hacked so deeply that the attackers were basically running their internal operations without anyone realizing it. And somewhere inside these whispers, a name emerged: a cartel, a collective, a ghost, Spectre. At first, no one believed it. The idea of a single group orchestrating dozens of breaches across continents sounded like a conspiracy theory. Hackers didn't collaborate on that scale. Criminals didn't coordinate with that precision. But over the next 2 years, Spectre didn't just grow, it evolved. Like a biological organism, it mutated, adapted, strengthened. It went from draining tiny sums to draining entire systems. From exploiting vulnerabilities to creating them, from breaking into networks to becoming indistinguishable from the networks themselves. And the world had no idea. We picture cybercrime as something chaotic. Teenagers in dark basements, frantic typing, glitchy screens, dramatic countdown timers like in movies. But the real kind is slow, patient, quiet. It's a long game played by people with IQs so high they often feel alienated from the rest of us. Spectre didn't attack like criminals. They infiltrated like surgeons. Each member played a role. Developers, infiltrators, cleaners, launderers, none of whom ever needed to meet or even know each other. They operated on a trustless system, each one replaceable, each one isolated from the full plan. If someone vanished, the machine moved on. If someone was caught, the machine replaced them. And for years, law enforcement didn't even know what they were supposed to be looking for without a face, without a name, without a country, without a motive beyond what every human shares: the desire for power, money, and relevance. Spectre became something new. A crime family born from the internet itself. A living, breathing cartel that existed everywhere and nowhere at the same time. You might think the story begins with a hack or a theft or some dramatic breach that made headlines, but it doesn't. It begins with something far more unsettling. It begins with the realization that by the time you understand what Spectre is, they've already been inside your world for years, and they aren't done yet. They're only just beginning. If you want to understand Spectre, you can't start with the crimes. You have to start with the people, the minds behind the keyboards, the fingers behind the code, the childhoods that forged them. Not because it excuses anything, but because it explains everything. Spectre doesn't recruit like a traditional criminal organization. They don't look for loyalty or violence or desperation. They look for brilliance, the kind of brilliance that often goes unnoticed, even unwanted in society. Imagine a 16-year-old in Manila whose family can barely afford electricity, but who manages to teach himself advanced cryptography from old YouTube videos. Imagine a Syrian refugee in Germany, traumatized but brilliant, who once built military-grade encryption tools, but now can't find a legal job because his degrees weren't recognized. Imagine a PhD dropout in Canada, brilliant but deeply lonely, who feels invisible in every room he enters. Spectre's founders realized something early. Genius is undervalued everywhere, so they created their own world, one where genius wasn't just valued, it was weaponized. Their recruitment system is almost poetic in its simplicity. Across dark web forums hidden inside harmless posts are puzzles, broken pieces of code that look meaningless to most but feel like a challenge, a taunt, a secret message to those capable of understanding it. If you fix it, a message appears, a location, a server, an invitation. Not everyone accepts, but the ones who do rarely turn back. And that's the frightening part. Many don't join out of greed. They join out of recognition, out of the thrill of finally being seen, out of a sense of belonging they never felt anywhere else. Spectre doesn't just give them money, it gives them meaning. One investigator in Interpol described it like this: these weren't criminals who turned to hacking, these were prodigies who turned to crime. But inside the cartel, something unexpected happens. You don't just write malware or ransomware. You collaborate with people who understand you, people who speak your language, people who finally make you feel like your mind isn't a burden. And slowly, morality becomes negotiable. Because if the world never valued your brilliance, why would you value its rules? But here's the twist. As Spectre grew, something changed inside its ranks. Not everyone agreed with the direction. Not everyone wanted to cause harm. Not everyone believed hospitals and schools should be collateral damage. Arguments broke out. Some left the group. Others doubled down on ruthlessness. And the tension inside this invisible empire became so intense that one investigator called it a digital civil war. You won't see any of this in the headlines. You won't see their faces or hear their voices. But behind closed servers, behind encrypted walls, behind identity layers deeper than any intelligence agency can unravel, Spectre isn't just committing crimes, it's fighting with itself. But while they fight among themselves, the money keeps flowing, the hacks keep evolving, and the world keeps losing. Because even a fractured cartel is still a cartel, and even a ghost can leave destruction in its wake. By 2021, Spectre had become something the world had never seen before, a decentralized, unstoppable machine capable of stealing millions without triggering a single alarm. The secret wasn't brute force or flashy hacks. It was something far more elegant: patience. Spectre's favorite strategy wasn't dramatic ransomware attacks or overnight bank thefts. It was infiltration. Long-term, deep, undetectable. They didn't break into systems. They became part of them. Like parasites that merge with the nervous system of their host, Spectre learned how to insert code so quietly, so subtly, that even seasoned experts couldn't distinguish it from legitimate operations. In one case, Spectre infiltrated the payment processing system of a major African telecom company. For nearly 2 years, they skimmed microfees off millions of transactions, fractions of a cent. Too small for anyone to notice, too precise to trigger alarms. By the time anyone discovered the breach, nearly $40 million had been siphoned into offshore wallets. But here's the terrifying part. That wasn't their biggest operation. In late 2019, Spectre orchestrated what investigators now call the 7-hour heist, a coordinated digital strike on 29 banks across 13 countries synchronized within seconds, perfectly timed, flawlessly executed, Over $400 million disappeared into crypto tumblers, tools designed to erase the path of digital money, so sophisticated that governments couldn't even identify the currencies being mixed. You might imagine chaos in the banks, alarms blaring, analysts shouting. But none of that happened, because Spectre didn't steal it loudly, they stole it cleanly. By the time the first analyst spotted an anomaly, the money had already passed through dozens of untraceable nodes and vanished forever. But money wasn't their endgame anymore. What Spectre realized, something no gang had mastered before, was that access, not money, is the most valuable currency in the digital world. They began selling entry points into corporations, malware kits that could breach hospitals, tools that could bypass police systems, intelligence-level cyber weapons, now available to the highest bidder crime as a service, chaos as a marketplace. And Spectre became the silent supplier of digital weaponry for criminals, rogue states, and extremist groups. Governments panicked, not because Spectre was stealing money, but because Spectre was giving power to people who shouldn't have it. Yet, despite the urgency, arrests were rare, raids failed, task forces collapsed under jurisdiction conflicts, countries argued, agencies blamed each other. Meanwhile, Spectre stayed one step ahead, always watching, always learning, always evolving. If someone was caught, operations continued without interruption. If a server was seized, a mirrored network activated instantly. If an investigator traced a wallet, it had already forked into 1,000 fragments. You can't catch something that regenerates faster than you can strike it. And this left investigators with an unavoidable, unsettling realization. Maybe, just maybe, Spectre can't be stopped. Not by police, not by governments, not by anyone. Because how do you arrest a shadow? An old saying in cybersecurity: there is no such thing as an unhackable system, only systems not yet hacked. But Spectre taught the world something new. There is no such thing as a criminal you can fully see, only criminals who choose to be seen. And most of Spectre chooses to remain invisible. Their downfall, if it ever happens, won't come from brute force or military budgets. It won't come from global cooperation or heroic digital warriors. It will come from something far more human: a mistake. Because no matter how advanced the code, no matter how secure the encryption, no matter how invisible the network, a human wrote it, and humans are flawed. In late 2023, those flaws finally cracked through. A Spectre insider, to this day unidentified, leaked a fragment of the cartel's internal communications. Just a tiny piece, a sliver, a window into the world. Spectre tried so hard to hide. Inside, the leak was an argument. Spectre was planning a ransomware attack on a multinational corporation, but the route to breaching their system required going through a hospital network that used outdated software. Some members argued it didn't matter. They weren't targeting the hospital, just passing through. Others pushed back. The risk was too great. Medical records could be erased, systems could collapse, lives could be lost. The argument tore the group in half, and for the first time, the world saw Spectre not as an unstoppable machine, but as people. People with fear, people with disagreements, people who felt the weight of consequences, even if they'd spent years pretending not to. For investigators, this was the moment they'd been waiting for: a fracture, a fault line, proof that the cartel wasn't a perfect organism, but Spectre, even divided, is still powerful, still evolving, still dangerous. And that brings us here to today. We live in a world built on convenience, but convenience is just vulnerability disguised as progress. Every device we connect, every password we reuse, every company that stores our data without our understanding. All of it expands the ecosystem Spectre feeds on. We built a world out of glass, and Spectre learned how to walk through the walls. But if there's one truth that history has taught us, it's this: no empire lasts forever. Not the ones built on land, not the ones built on fear, and not the ones built out of code. Somewhere inside Spectre, someone will slip, someone will defect. Someone will make a mistake so small they don't even notice it, but large enough for the world to finally see the outline of the ghost in the wires. Maybe it will happen tomorrow. Maybe it will happen in a decade. Maybe it will never happen at all. But until then, we live with the knowledge that the most powerful criminal organization on Earth has no borders, no faces, no leaders, and no reason to stop. And the next time something in your world flickers, glitches, freezes, or disappears without explanation, you might wonder, was it just technology failing? Or was it Spectre passing silently through, watching, measuring, waiting? Because in the end, the most terrifying part isn't that Spectre exists, it's that they might be inside your life already, and you'd never know.